Live from Jacksonville, Florida, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We've got a great guest. Before we jump into that, two ways you can interact with the show. In 2021, this is about your career, your future, your passion, your purpose. Ask questions to these career guests throughout the year by emailing me, zach@zachballinger.com. We will make sure to get to them once the expert comes on. We are streaming live via YouTube right now. So if you're out there listening, you subscribe to the YouTube channel, enter those questions into the comment box. We'll make sure to get to them. Without further ado, Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Great to be here, Zach. Thank you.
So, Jacqueline, before we jump into answering some of these questions from people around the country, we wanted to ask you kind of about yourself and what do you do?
So I've been an executive coach, leadership training, and behavioral analysis person for about 15 years now. And I primarily have been working with a lot of women, entrepreneurs, and millennial managers, actually, were a big piece of the last few years. Teaching them about self-awareness, teaching them how to communicate better, learning how to really bring your full self into whatever it is that you're doing. And of course, getting past the fears that are getting in the way.
Well, great. We're glad to have you on. I think you'll be able to help us a lot with these questions. So the first question that somebody emailed in was, I want to go for promotion in my company. I've went for it 2 other times and have not gotten the position. What advice would you give me?
So first of all, when we're going for promotion, the one thing we got to look at is what's your track record at this point in time? Are you very clear on what it is that you contribute to the growth of the company? Because clearly, if you're going for promotion, it means that I feel like I've contributed a great deal. So you have to be able to articulate that. And especially when you're talking to your boss, whoever's making the decisions on the promotion, you've got to be able to lay it out in terms of why you deserve to have this promotion. Many times people can say, I want promotion, but they're not really clear on why they deserve it or what they can contribute if they are promoted. And, I can tell you a story about someone who was at VP level in the marketing department of a company, and I was coaching at the time. And he'd been there for 6 years and had gone way over the top time and time again because he had a very demanding boss. And he showed up and he delivered, and great results. The revenues were up big time, and he still wasn't getting the promotion. So we had to lay out a kind of a roadmap for this to point out all the things that he had contributed, all the reasons why he thought that he deserved to be promoted, and what he could do for the company if he were promoted, given his track record of being 150%er. That's really what it came down to. So it's about being really strategic. It's, you've got to have it planned out. You've got to know what that conversation looks like. And if you have difficulty with that conversation, then you need to kind of rehearse it out a little bit and figure out, exactly how are you going to be approaching this piece. Because if you've been turned down twice already, either they're not feeling like you've really got what they want, or you haven't made a good enough case for yourself. And that's really what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, great advice. Thank you so much for helping us with that. I would say sit down with your manager and talk with them and be open and honest about where you want to get to, why you think your skills, and what can we do in the meantime to develop these skills? If you're going for a management job or leadership position, or you're going into another function, what can you be doing side project wise to help out somebody? What can you volunteer to do? Who can they network with you with to set up some time to talk to them, to maybe set up a once a month meeting for 30 minutes with this person so you can learn more about their field? Is there preceptorships that you can do within the company where you can learn about the role first, where you can put it on? Is there management assessments? Is there learning programs? So it's kind of a loaded question, if you will, but if you're going for a promotion right now, and like Jacqueline said, you've been turned down twice, you may want to look at realistically, what are you missing? Is there tools, and what are they looking for in the position? Is it more experience? Or are they hiring somebody from the outside? And really have a candid conversation with your management. Obviously not angry or you're mad. You come at it with a professional level and an angle. So Thank you for that, Jacqueline.
And I think another
Go
piece
ahead.
of that, Zach, is that you've got to be really clear about what's your power base. Who are you influencing? Who are the influences in your life? What's the allies that you're building or have built, and using them as leverage too? Because another example would be, having somebody to speak for you. Whoops, my apologies. Having someone to speak for you, that's a big piece right there. Someone who knows your work. So I would add that to the mix as well. But as you say, it's a loaded question.
And so the next question comes in from somebody who said they've been in the same position 5 years at the same company, hasn't had that much of a raise, feels like they deserve a raise. How do you go about having that conversation with your manager?
Well, that's a real loaded question, that one. Because everybody feels like they're definitely owed more money, and that they could be paid more for what they do. But I'm going to go back to the last answer I gave, which is, you've got to really build a case for that. Why you should pay me money. I mean, how many hours a day am I working for you? Am I turning in hours over what you would normally expect? Or looking at other people, what are they earning? People hate to talk about what they're actually earning. Somehow it's like a taboo subject. But if you can go online and you can figure out what you should be getting paid for the job that you're in, that's a good start right there. Glassdoor has plenty of options for the roles that you might be in, and start thinking about that. And again, this is a conversation, so you go to your manager and you say, yeah, I definitely would like to get paid more. So, what's in the budget? And how are you going to address that? So again, that's a question that I don't think has an easy answer to it, because I really would want to know, again, what are you contributing that makes you think you're owed more money for the job that you're doing? And how long have you been doing it, which is the other side of it? How long have you been getting paid at the same thing? And when was the last time you got a raise? When was the last time you got any kind of bonus? So these are all other issues that I think one has to look at in the conversation.
Yeah, just because you breathe air doesn't mean you deserve a raise. And so I think that's a lot of times, you have to really do your homework and see in the marketplace, well, what is this position demanding? If it's a computer analyst, how much do those make a year? Google it. Go on Monster, go on salary.com and see about your geographical area where those people are making those salaries. Maybe talk to somebody else in a different company. Hey, what do you make? I mean, like you said, have these open conversations. Maybe not, that's not your first question to a stranger is how much money you make, but maybe you can network with some of your other colleagues to learn some of these things and really get it's almost like buying a used car. Whoever has the most research usually wins.
Mm.
And so make sure you have all your ducks in a row before you start negotiating your salary. And who knows, maybe the company can't afford a raise. It's been a really tough time in 2020. So you might, like Jacqueline said, we're not sure when you got your last raise or anything like that, but they might have been budget cuts across in 2020 where that affects that. So your manager can be candid with you and let you know that feedback as well. So the next question comes in. It says, I'm trying to be a manager in my company, but they keep telling me they want to hire somebody with leadership experience. How do you get leadership experience if your company won't even give it to you?
That is such a great question. Um, Most companies fail because they don't give proper leadership training. They don't they don't even begin to understand what leadership really is about. And lots of people who are maybe in a technology role are thrust into leadership, and they're nothing about people. They know nothing about how to work with people. And I mean, I can tell you right now, I've got a daughter who's a senior manager, and she's got two teams of 10 people. And I said to her, well, when was the last time you got some leadership training? She said, oh, they gave us a half day thing, a while ago. I said, so did it stick? She said, no, not really. We look at the numbers. $365 billion is spent on leadership development globally. And I would say that 95% of that is a waste of money because it doesn't sit. I mean, I'm brought in to do a workshop for a team of people, and they want me to do miracles in a day, frankly. And I like to say that behavior change takes time. And being a leader, to this specific question about how do I become a leader, number one, learn who you are. Number one is self-awareness. And that's really what my book, The Fearless Factor at Work, is all about. It's about helping you define what matters to you, your vision, where you think you're going, but knowing what your strengths and your weaknesses are, knowing where you get in your own way, because we all have blind spots. Because being a great leader is very simple. I know who I am, so I can help you be who you are. Now, that's a big order right there. But most companies, and I could see it on your response there, Zach, that you understand also, most companies don't want to spend the money on training people how to be really good leaders. They expect them somehow to morph into them through trial and error. And mostly there's a lot of error before they finally get it. But I get managers all the time, and all they want to talk about is, how do I communicate more effectively with my team? How do I deal with confrontation? How do I deal with feedback? And this is a big piece of it. But it was also about, how do I deal with my own insecurities, my own lack of confidence, my own feeling that, maybe I'm not cut out for the job. And then building their strengths and understanding what their values are and how they can use those to catapult forward into the role that they're doing.
Yeah, and there's an old a question that always comes up: Are leaders born or made? And for me, I don't see, a CEO sitting in a maternity ward saying, "Oh, there's a leader." A lot of this is learned on through experience, through learning, through workshops, through training, and we don't probably do the best job of it in our country. So for sure, I can understand your frustration out there. This is where you have a collaboration with your manager. Say, where can I get this leadership experience in the meantime? What can I be doing in the company? Side projects, things outside my organization, volunteer experience, books. Do you recommend what books do you recommend on leadership? That wasn't one of the questions, but just asking you personally.
Well, there's a lot of books, as you can see behind me. I've got
I
shelves
noticed. That's why I asked.
I've got shelves and shelves of them. Specifically on leadership, it's old school. Read Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker on management and things he had to say about leadership are really great. Tom Peters was another one on old school who knows the inside outs on leadership. There's a book out there called The Leadership Challenge by Coos and Posner, and I highly recommend that one as well. There's, as I said, there's a slew of books that I could definitely, if I put my mind to it, could come up with. I just need to turn around and I could figure out a lot of different things.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, I think A Good to Great by Jim Collins, and
Yeah.
then John Maxwell does a pretty good job in some of the books, servanthood leadership. And so, but like Jacqueline said, there's a lot of great books out there on leadership. Those are just a few to touch base.
So
You have one?
Yes, Servant Leadership by Robert Greenleaf is a must. You must read about servant leadership, because being in leadership is not being a boss. It's not about telling people what to do. It's simply about being able to guide and give people the opportunity to grow and contribute from the point of view of understanding who they are and what it is that they are contributing to the whole scheme of things, because your leadership is only as good as the people that you're leading. And you can't build loyalty and trust into a team until they know that they can trust you, first and foremost. And secondly, that you are willing to say, I don't know, but I'll go find out. And that's a big piece about the vulnerability thing. And people think that when they get into an authority role, they're supposed to know everything. Yeah, they couldn't be further from the truth, frankly. That's just the starting point.
Right. And that's I can't remember who said it. I want to think it was Bill Gates, but said something like we hire smarter people than us to do the job, and something like that to that effect. And
Yeah,
so
I think it was actually Steve Jobs said,
that's
I'm
right.
only
That's
as good
right.
as the smart people that I've hired to do the job. And I
Right.
100% agree with it. I always hire people who are smarter than me at what they do, because it takes me too long to figure it out for myself, frankly.
Right. It's something like we don't tell them what to do. They tell us what to do because
Yes.
they're smarter than us.
Yes.
Um, so I love this next question that I see that comes in. It says, my manager says I need to develop a greater EQ. What does that mean, and how do I develop a greater EQ?
So what is EQ? It's emotional intelligence. And Daniel Goleman was the one who really made something out of that. It wasn't a new idea, but Daniel Goleman made it his back in the 1990s. What we're talking about is, first of all, awareness of self. And that's what I said earlier about self awareness, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, your blind spots, your values. What is it you're afraid of? What are the things that you're not really bringing your whole self to? There's self awareness. On the other side of that, you've got social awareness. So that means that I'm paying attention to how people feel, how people are, why people are behaving the way that they're behaving. Um, Empathy is a big one. If you're going to be a good leader, you better have a lot of empathy in there. And empathy is truly just understanding how people are feeling. And so it's not enough just to sympathize, because we can all sympathize. Yeah, yeah, I get it. I understand it. But when you really can put yourself in someone else's shoes, then you're in full empathy with them, compassion. It creates a lot of collaborative work right there. And it also, when you're socially aware and you can pay attention to the signs and signals that are happening around you and be responsive to them in a understanding, caring way, this is all emotional intelligence. I like to say that there are three innate needs of every human being, which is the need to belong, the community that you're part of, the need for empowerment, which is all about autonomy, feeling like you've got some skin in the game here, and meaning and purpose, which is you want to know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And these three kind of add into that emotional intelligence piece as well. So when your manager says to you, get more EQ, start with number one. That's where you go first, is do you know who you are? Get self-actualized, as they say. Now, self-actualization takes time and work. And if you don't know, go hire a coach to help you understand where the obstacles are and understand yourself a little bit better. I certainly wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if I hadn't had that kind of support and encouragement along the way with great coaching and training and so on.
So on the second part of the question for how do I develop greater EQ, that's where you would recommend a coach, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I think, first of all, getting to understand yourself, you can do it through books. I mean, I wrote The Fearless Factor at work as a virtual mentor for people so that they could actually take a deep dive at the end of every chapter where you ask yourself some really hard reflective questions, because self-reflection is a big piece of this. And many times I get executives and others who come to work with me and they go, I don't have time for self-reflection. And I was like, if you don't have time for self-reflection, how do you expect to grow? I do a lot of 360 behavioral assessments with my clients, and we can look at the behavioral styles and we can see where they're not really showing up. And one of the styles is achievement. So if your achievement levels are low, it simply means you're not taking enough risks. So, you have to challenge yourself. I like to say to my clients, first and foremost, get comfortable being uncomfortable, because it's through that discomfort that you discover the truth of who you really are. Because it's like, somebody once said many, many years ago, about women, is like, you don't know how strong, they're like tea bags. You don't know how strong they are until you put them in hot water, and I think that's a great quote. I don't like the woman who made that quote, but I think it's a great quote. And it applies to all of us, in fact.
I think you did such a great job of summing up what emotional intelligence means. And, if your manager's telling you that, I almost want to think you might be not realizing situations where you may say something maybe offensive or anything like that, or you're not know how to read the room. The good salespeople really know how to read the room. If they're talking to a customer, they know from nonverbal and verbal cues if something's agitating, if they're still bothered by something. And like Jacqueline said, you can't learn that over an hour an hour worth of us talking about it. It's more of a breakdown of you learning more about yourself. And then she goes back to explaining what that means as far as your skills, your strengths, and your abilities, as well as your weaknesses, So maybe not everybody's the best at public speaking, but at least we know that weakness. We can work on it if we have to do it, and then develop your strengths. I always like to focus on strengths more than weaknesses. If you're really good at something, overlapping them. But I agree with you. Like EQ, that's a just difficult to solve just in one short virtual interview. It almost takes working with somebody, I believe, as well.
Yeah, and I would also like to say that as far as that's concerned, that when you put in the time to really learn who you are, and you really bring your best self to whatever it is you're doing, whether it's at work or whether it's in your life in general, the quality of your life improves remarkably, remarkably.
So, Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining the show. This has been great. I think this has been such great advice to my audience out there. Some really good questions by you all as you guys are facing these. And honestly, don't be afraid to ask these type questions, because usually if somebody asks these type questions, there's like 5 or 10 other people out there thinking about them, but they're afraid to ask. So these questions were great. Now, Jacqueline, let's say somebody's out there listening. They want to get a hold of you. They would like to work with you. What's the best way of getting in touch with you?
So my website, thefearlessfactoratwork.com, is, contact me through that website right there. You can also email me at Jacqueline at thefearlessfactoratwork.com is another opportunity. And then on my website, I have a short PDF for those who might be feeling fearful about moving past whatever the obstacles are. It's called Give Fear the Finger. And it's a little exercise on how to identify your fears, and then what are the action steps you want to take to get beyond them, because most of our fears are imagination based, and we have to figure out what stories we're telling ourselves. So that's a bigger conversation. And I also would suggest go to Amazon and pick up a copy of The Fearless Factor at Work. There's a lot of great information there that will address some of the questions that were asked today, and I'll give you the questions you need to start to think about, how am I showing up in the world? What matters to me? And where is it I think I'm going? I like to talk about goals as great opportunities for advancing leadership success, which is a great acronym for goals in general. Great opportunities for advancing leadership success. And so I talk about that in the book. And I also talk about building your leadership muscles, because I've been a big CrossFit fan for years now. So, it's kind of like working out with weights. You got to do the work, and you build it up slowly. So you kind of go from there. So these are the ways in which you can get in touch with me, and would love to hear from you.
And for social media, they can find that all on your website. Is that the best place for them to
Yeah,
go?
LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn, and I have some Facebook stuff going on, but primarily I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not a Twitter or an Instagram person. I feel like I got too many other things to do with my time.
Well, again, we appreciate you coming on the show. This has been great. If you want to get in touch with Jacqueline, she's provided all those links. They'll also be in the comment section. Guys, thank you so much for joining the show. We know you got a lot of things going on out there as well. And so until next time, have a great day, take care, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.